I want to ask you a question. Who's coaching you? Who's asking you the tough questions? Who's telling you, man, you're the common denominator to all of your issues and challenges? Who's telling you, man, all day long you become the magnetic pulse that attracts to you both good and bad? I want to be your life coach. I want to be the one that cheers you on to the finish line. I want to be the one that you ask the tough questions. And it doesn't mean that I have all the answers, but that means that you have a partner, someone who believes in you, not the you see right now, but the you can't imagine, the you that you are to become, the you are destined to be. I always say we both need the positive and the negative. It's not enough to have the knowledge of the matter, but we must have the wisdom as well. For wisdom settles it. And that's what I want to offer you as you join me on the Coach's Corner. I want to offer you the wisdom of the matter. Maybe it might be relationships, talking about our campaigns for more, for life, the dark room for our subconscious, our spiritual journey. Whatever it is, I want to be there to encourage you, to build you, to challenge you, to cheer you on to the finish line. I'm qualified to do this. Why? Because I'm you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for another exclusive with a young man who hails from Asheville, North Carolina, and is joining us here by way of telephone. It's still working today. We're going to have this young man on teleconference very, very soon. But a native of Asheville, North Carolina, Keynon Lake is on the phone. How are you, Mr. Lake?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, as we had shared off air, we want to celebrate you as an author, but more importantly, we want to talk and share with our listening audience all about the work that you are doing there in Asheville, but also spreading out in the Southeast region and throughout the United States. Tell everybody where you're from, particularly, and a little bit about yourself, and then let's begin to talk about your projects.
Okay, well, like you stated earlier, I'm actually originally born and raised here in Asheville, North Carolina. That's in the western part of North Carolina, up in the mountains. It's probably the largest city outside of west of Charlotte. My background is social work and working with young youth and children. I've actually been a social worker for about 10 years, a child protective social worker working with neglected and abused kids. I've done that for about 10 years. Before that, I worked with youth and teens at the Asheville City Parks and Recreation. Did that for about a year or two. And then from working with youth and kids, but primarily from my father, he talk a little bit about him real fast. I was blessed. I come from a two-parent home. My mother, Robin Lake, my father, Benny Lake. My dad passed away a few years ago, but my dad actually played with the original Harlem Globetrotters. He played with Curly Neal, Meadowlark Lemon, all those guys back in the early 70s, late 60s, from 68 to 72. And had a basketball background. My dad was a real great man. From playing with the Globetrotters, he went on and started working with young kids as well as a social worker here in Nashville at the Juvenile Evaluation Center. He did that for 30 years. After doing that, he ended up forming his own clinics and basketball programs, and then he formed a business called Upfront Sports Management, where he worked with inner city kids and youth. So that's where I get my passion for kids and my passion for youth is from my father. Now, back last year, May of 2012, I published my first book, and it's entitled "My Daddy Taught Me That." Real quick, the inspiration for my book was, in fact, my father. And it started out as basically just to try to write an article to the newspaper to try to give my dad a little tone for what he did and what he meant to me. And in that process, it just transformed into doing something that I knew he would do. And that's trying to encourage, enlighten, and educate men and young men, excuse me, in this nation. Because, what I've seen in my last 10 years at the Department of Social Services is that we're losing a generation of kids, primarily young men, who desperately it's desperately becoming a problem. And so from that standpoint, I wanted to do my part and try to, change that and make some waves and head that up. Now, in July of 2012, I started a program, a men's development program called My Daddy Taught Me That. And it's basically, I work with young men ages 12 through 19, grades 6 through 12. Mm-hmm. And the process and the core of my program is being able to work with these young men every 2 nights a week, Monday and Wednesday, for about 2 hours. I have men discussion groups where I have guest speakers at times come talk to my young men about, we cover various of topics. Public speaking is one of them. Being able to tie a tie is one. I think all young men should learn how to tie a tie. Mm-hmm. Discipline. The main thing that I preach to my young men is being able to accept your responsibilities and be accountable for your actions. Mm-hmm. We talk about, I have a class where I have 3 women come to talk to my men, 1 social worker, 1 doctor, and another professional in the community come talk to my young men about what women expect from men and what they look for in men and how men should treat women. I have a number of classes that range from a variety of different things to try to help and educate these young men. The core of the program, the core of the process is being able to have older men, professional older men, these young men can identify with. So we have these men discussion groups with the group, and they interact, and it goes really well. Now, outside of the class participation, I have what I like to call life-changing events. Mm-hmm. A lot of the young men that I work with, are not fortunate enough to do certain things, so I try to make it where I'm able to take them to do certain things and provide an outlet, mm-hmm. and just expose them, to give them that exposure. So what I do is, like for example, about a month and a half ago, we went to one of the Carolina Panther football games. Mm-hmm. I take them to the Bobcat basketball games and camping and just whatever it is that I can do to try to give them that exposure and shape and mold them. I'm actually hooked up with the schools that each one of my young men go to. I'm able to go to the school to make sure that they're doing well in school, and then I just now added a component to my program to where if I identify a young man who's doing well in school and who's of age, mm-hmm. then I'm able to try to get him a job as well. So that's the program, and that's what I've been doing here. The program again started in July, and I've been doing it now for about 8 months, and it's definitely growing. I started off with about 8 kids back in July, and now I have 19 kids in my program.
That's very good. I want to go back to your book because some of our listeners may be single parents, and I want you to speak to whether or not single mothers would be able to utilize this book or how to utilize this book. My Daddy Taught Me That, as they consider hearing your story.
Yes, sir. The book can be used by everybody, and I encourage all readers, male, female, young and old, because I put a lot in this book, and the one thing that I'm proud about this book is everything in the book I wrote. So mm-hmm. no one wrote it for me, but all the statistical information in the book, everything I gathered, I did the research. But the good thing about this book is it has a lot of statistical information in it. And it just doesn't cover Asheville, North Carolina, or Western North Carolina. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of statistical information for the entire nation. Mm-hmm. Now, one statistic that I always point out in the book is this: it's 13.7 million single families in America. Out of 13.7, out of that number, 84% are single moms. Mm-hmm. So basically, what that tells us is that if we have 10 youth, 8.5 out of 10 are being raised by a single mom. So, like I always tell, I encourage and applaud all my single mothers for doing the yeoman's work, because you're not made to be the mother and the father of any child. Mm-hmm. But there are examples in the book, particularly when you're dealing with young men. Young men, and my grandmother used to always say when I was growing up, young men, when they get a certain age, they start to smell themselves. Right. So when they get a certain age, you need to have that male role model, if not a dad or a grandfather, uncle, or a positive influence, male influence in these kids' lives. Because what happens, there's a saying that says, iron sharpens iron. And, there's certain things that a woman cannot teach a man, just like there's certain things that a man cannot teach a woman. So you need to be able to have that positive male role model in that child's life to be able to try to lead them by example. So there's stuff in the book for everybody, for all readers. I think that whoever reads the book, I've gotten back several reviews on the book, and And I've been told it was really, really well done. So I'm really proud about that.
Well, what I would like to do as we just get ready to take a break here is offer you the chance and the opportunity to just take that title, My Daddy Taught Me That, and let's do a show. You can just join us by phone, and we can outline what we want to do. If we have a copy of the book in our studio, we'll begin to read it and study it, and then we'll converse back and forth via email, and let's do a show to promote not only the book but the content of what you are about, which is what your father taught you, how to rebuild and how to encourage those that are disenfranchised in our communities, so that we can pay now or we can pay later. And anybody that knows anything about the statistics know that the taxpayer picks up the bill when they're in prison. You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly right.
So
exactly
right. I want to.
The part of my life is prevention. I look at it as if I'm working now to prevent things from happening in the future, and not just prevention, just to be able to give our young men and our young people in general a fighting chance. This world is hard enough, if you're doing the right things and you're out here trying to live the right way, let alone to be able to, make bad decisions. We're all, human. We're going to make decisions and sometimes bad decisions, but being able to give our youth just a fighting chance to do better.
And we're going to take a break real quick, and we'll be right back. We're talking with Keynon Lake, author of My Daddy Taught Me That, all the way from Asheville. All right.
Listening to the sounds of your lifestyle improvement station, changing the way we live. SIBN FM.
You're listening to SIBN Radio. We'll be right back in a moment. The time to have your business online with the Select USA TV iBroadcasting Network. That's right, SIBN or Select USA TV will produce your video on the spot. Picture business videos, on location streaming videos, or on location production videos. Dial 678-830-3118 or call the office at 404-910-5019 Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now is the time to have your business online with SIBN. The Select USA TV iBroadcasting Network now offers picture videos, on-location streaming videos, and on-location production videos for your event cause, brand, or mission. Call today, 678-830-3118 or 404-910-5019. Attention all artists of all genres. Now you can be featured on Gas Global Artist Showcase on the CATL show, airing now on SIBN Radio. That's right, all artists now, all genres, wholesome and positive please, can be featured on Gas Global Artist Showcase. Global Artist Showcase on the CATL show, now airing on SIBN Radio. For more information, dial 404-910-5019. That's 404-910-5019. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's right. Or email us at globalcoverage@selectusatv.info.
Are you a spoken word artist?
Now is your time to be featured online. Tier 1 Promotions on the CATL show is looking for spoken word artists to be featured
on regular rotation.
If you are a spoken word artist, now is your time to be promoted on Tier 1 Promotions with the CATL show. For more information, dial 404-910-5019. That's 404-910-5019. Or email us your bio, and your links to work online. Global coverage at selectusatv.info. Global coverage at selectusatv.info. Calling all spoken word artists nationwide. Nationwide call for all spoken word artists. Nationwide. A nationwide call for all spoken word artists. This has been your CATL GAS Global Artist Showcase promotion.
All submissions must be wholesome and positive, please. Suitable for SIBN television and radio networks.
All right, we're back here with Mr. Keynon Lake here at SIBN Radio, where we celebrate authors and anyone that works in the community doing wholesome and positive things. And surely authors mean a lot to us because we all have to capture our experiences, our lessons in life, and put them in some kind of context by which we can share and pass the legacy on. So that as we get up in age, we'll be able to look back and not only have seen the work, but have sort of like a manual. And this book, My Daddy Taught Me That, is a very good, I really want to say it probably would be a textbook manual for understanding how the fatherhood aspect of a child's life works. Wouldn't you say so, Mr. Lake?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, again, piggybacking on what you said, a lot of the book, too, has a lot of examples of and stories of different, I would like to say different storylines of how, and this is not just single parents, but how fathers are so needed, you know, and men are so needed, you know. 90% of the time when you have, you know, when you see, this is said 84%, when you have a single parent, it's always the mom. And like I said, too, you know, I don't want to sound redundant, and I really appreciate the moms, but you really have to have a father or a male role model in there to shape these children and give them what they sometimes don't have.
Well, you know, I was an early childhood major in college, and what I'm getting ready to say is going to sound so simple, but those mothers out there will be able to testify, as they say in the church, to this, what I'm getting ready to say. The father, they might not have known this, but the father brings to the table two, I want to say three, but two dominant aspects of a child's life, boys and girls. Number one, they bring the protectorate aspect to the child's life, because children that do not feel that they are protected are automatically at risk very early, which breaks the bonding process. The second is they bring, I want to say the provisionary, I'm going to go ahead and mention all three, the provisionary aspect to the child's life. And then third, believe it or not, this is the one that you may not believe, they bring the simulated life playground to the child's life. Men were designed to play with their children. Hence, when a child grows up in a home where there's no father, the father brings the play. That's how the father initiates nurturing with children, is through play. And I call it simulated because eventually it becomes playing at life simulated experiences that may become reality later on, such as Boy Scouts or Civic Air Patrol or what have you. But those are the three things that men bring to the table for children: protection, provision, and play. Play. Sounds real simple, but think about the child now who maturates toward video games and has no physical safe zone for physical interaction or psychological interaction for healthy life simulated play. And when that ingredient is missing, the child then, as he maturates toward another age, somewhere around 12, preteen and up, when he's ready for structure, he's out of balance already. He's still trying to play because nobody play with him. That sounds real simple.
Exactly right.
But this is, as you talked about your father, Keynon,
I was looking at his picture, you know, and I was saying, I bet you guys had, I'm sorry if anybody that don't have a father, I'm not trying to be funny, but I know that, Keynon, you had a ball with your dad.
Oh, my gosh. You know, it's funny, and I said this earlier, but, you know, part of my, it's as a young man, and this is something that you can contest to because you have your father as well, you see how your life is shaped. I'm 35 years old, and, you know, I see how my life has been influenced and shaped by my father. And the thing about it is, in no shape or plan, like, my dad introduced me to basketball because he played, he introduced it to me, and I loved it. But we had you know, I never forget, you know, at my games, you know, my mother was there, my dad was there, and they were my biggest fans. Mm-hmm. But I have so many memories of when my dad, you know, it was just fun, and it was some of the best moments of my life, being able to see his face and see how proud, and you know, and how he saw his son out there doing things. And it is crazy because I see how my life is an extension of his. You know, I played basketball, he did. He was a social worker. Mm-hmm. I got my degree in sports medicine, and I never dreamed of doing social work, but some kind of way I wound up being a social worker. And then it's like now, the passion that he had for youth and kids, he instilled it in me. So, you know, when you go through life a little bit and you get a little older, I'm not too old, but as I get a little older, I start to see how much, you know, having that influenced me. Now, real quick, one of my real good friends, you know, he has 3 children now. He's married with 3 kids, and one of the things he told me, and he tells me this a lot of the times, but he always tells me how, by me having a dad, one of the things that separated me from, particularly, he always uses it as an example of playing basketball. The reason, you know, he always says, Keynon, the reason that you were so much better than everybody was because of your confidence. And the confidence that you had was instilled in you by your father. He said, I was a, you know, he said, my mama, you know, she didn't know about basketball. He said, and I was still good, you know, and my friend was good enough to go to college and get a scholarship and play college basketball. But he said, can you imagine how good I could have been had I had a father who did what your dad did for you? Exactly. And instilled that confidence. You know, so it's so many things. And, you know, like I said, you look back in life and you really start to see, and you know, when you probably would not be able to see if you don't know otherwise. So.
Well, let me just piggyback on what you're saying in another dimension. You know, the single mother, and why we celebrate our single mothers, because we know that our precious children throughout the United States of America are in the hands and in the care of the single mothers, whether we have disagreements or not, whether we like all of our single mothers or not, whether we agree with the systematic issues that single mothers find themselves in with the child support collection and all these other domestic violence and all these other issues. What I want to say to you is that I think I hear you saying that the father brings, and we're not just talking about fathers, blood fathers, but we're talking about men in the community of children's lives. I mean, male teachers are, before I make my point, let me just point this out. Male teachers are almost less than 2% in our schools. Almost less than 2% in our schools. Right. The only male that the African-American child is always going to see, chances are, is from the pulpit. What kind of message does that send? And also from seeing a particular sports figure, and also perhaps if the child has any intellectual aspirations, is in the political or educational environment. But the point I was going to say is this. Single mothers, they are overloaded, for the love of goodness. Right. Listen, I always say this: you cannot borrow from your strengths continuously. Now, you can do that. We do that. That's my own psychological aspect about life. You can borrow from your strengths temporarily, but if you borrow from your strength on a regular basis or as a lifestyle tenet, then what happens? You bankrupt your strength. And what was meant to be strong, now you're weak at, and what you were meant to be weak at to improve, now you're strong at. So you're strong at the wrong thing, and you're weak at the wrong thing, because your single mothers are overloaded. And I'm not talking about a section or a region. I'm talking about the African-American home. Like you said, 80% single mothers carrying this responsibility, because mothering is mothering. They're going to mother no matter what they're going through, is too much culturally speaking. And they can't do it. And so here, Keynon Lake comes along and writes this amazing book, which should be on the New York's bestseller list. You ought to have 10 interviews a day if we really, wanted to be honest about it, because this is the plight of America as far as African American families are concerned, is this overburdening of women, and it causes problems to come up elsewhere. There are other problems that are maturating and brewing in our society right now that are a result of male children being exposed to predominantly female environments. I don't want to get into it on this show. Me and Keynon will talk later, and we'll bring it up respectively, because I want to give him a heads up. But the point of the matter is, a male child that has no consistent interaction with healthy male leadership, only exposed to a feminine-dominated environment, spells trouble for the African American family in the future. We interrupt this program to simply say thank you for your listenership here on SIBN Radio. We do not take what you're giving to us for granted. By all means, we invite you to be a part of our family in a deeper way. You can visit our websites, www.sibntelevision.com. You'll see a community page at the top there, and you can join free of charge with your email and share your thoughts, pictures, and so much more right there on the site. And for those of you that would like to listen more regularly to our block programming, you can visit www.sibnradio-by-selectusatv.com. We're now looking for interns for the SIBN networks, and there is no shortage of work that needs to be done. Simply email us your bio or resume to globalcoverage@selectusatv.info. New programming is always a consideration here at the networks, and we invite you to share your ideas, concepts, or vision. As we move forward with a global multimedia platform, we expect great things. We now want to return you to your regularly scheduled program. And again, from our hearts to yours, thank you. Keynon, I don't want to go into some of those issues, but speak to that.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, the thing is this, and this is my belief, but the core, and not only just the core of the family, but the core of this country, to me, and like I said, coming from my opinion, is the family. You have to have a strong family to be, to direct and to do things in this country. And I think that's one of the reasons that we have a lot of the problems that we do. But it's like this: if you don't have that head, and I'm speaking spiritually now, the head of the household, which is the male, then you can't, and I'm not saying everybody has a different lifestyle, everybody has a different walk. So I'm not saying that you have to be married. Of course, that would be ideal if you're married with children and you can live that ideal, and that's the way I think Christ intended it to be. However, we know it's not shaped that way. But when you have a missing piece, like for example, you have two people who procreated to make a child, and one leaves. Well, then that's it's not balanced.
Right.
You don't have that balance.
Right.
So you're gonna have a ton of problems because you don't have that balance where you don't have, even if you don't live together with your child, which I encourage you. Like I said, I tell all my children, I tell everybody, before you even think about having sex, get married first. Put it like this, any male with penis can make a child, but it takes a man to raise his family and raise his children.
That's right.
So it's like you need to have that balance. But real quick, let me give you, real quick, and I said earlier, 84%. Now that's the nation, okay? That's not just blacks. That's blacks and whites, and Hispanic and every other race. And what I've seen in my work is that not only is this issue is a problem, it's definitely a problem in the African American, it's a problem in all communities. It's a problem It's a problem in our communities, but specifically speaking towards, real quick, I'm going to give two more examples or two more statistics that I have in my book. About 27% of white children do not live with their biological fathers, 35% Hispanic children, 60% black children do not live with their fathers. About 80% of African American children can expect to spend a significant portion of their childhood living without their biological father. So these are just a few statistics in my book. I have tons of them, but it's just like I just wanted to contest. Like, what happens is this, and this is what we see in just about every statistical category when you're dealing with this topic. The problem is great for every race. I don't want to just single out the black race. The problem is great, white, black, Hispanic, but it's so much more dire in the African American community, and that's something that it really bothers me because I know what my race is capable of. I know, that we are a people with pride and we can do better. We're capable of so much more, and we can do so much better.
And I was thinking about your title, and as we wrap things up, that someone's listening to us who have no connection or concept to understand the fatherhood issue, and we understand that. And when I look at that title, my daddy taught me that it would take, because my father's father left at a very early age. I think he was 8, 9 years old, and he was the baby of I think 13 siblings. So he could have easily used the fact that his father wasn't there as an excuse, But when I look at your title, my father taught me that I think about God. That if you don't know how to do something, if you have children and you don't feel like you have a handle on the situation, rather than just going to church to get the dopamine released and have that good feeling, it would be even better to get this book, my father taught me that, or other books, to inquire on what do I need to change. Because part of parenting that I've learned over the past 20 years is that parents have to upgrade. You can't, whatever you was doing 10 years ago with your child, you can't do when he's 15. You know what I mean? But if you don't know, I looked at that title just now. My father taught me that, and you are a Christian, you have a heavenly Father who will teach you, because my father is a witness to that, in that his father left. And what happened was, at 8 years old, he had told me that he made a decision that when I grow up and I have a family, I will never leave my kids by themselves with their mother. And what happened as a reason for his determination, a young man that didn't have children came alongside my father and taught him all about working in carpentry and working in all these different areas as far as working with his hands. Of course, he had a job, but he just mentored my dad on manhood issues, not on parenting issues, because the guy didn't have any kids. But the point is, if you acknowledge that you don't know something, God will come alongside and help you and teach you. And picking up a book like this one, Keynon, that you've written, my father taught me that, which has both a natural meaning and a spiritual meaning, because in essence, the book is somewhat prophetic. If you're going to learn how to raise a child properly, you're going to need to understand and take a glimpse into the fatherhood dimension. You can't do without it. You got to have it,
That's something that I put at the end of my book, and I'm glad you said that. To piggyback on what you said, this is what and actually I think you and I may be kindred spirits, because my father was in the same situation. His dad, in fact, he didn't meet his father until he was 33 years old. So my dad was 33 years old when he met his father for the first time, and and I put a little bit of this in the book as well. But a lot of the times, and we wonder why we are where we are as a nation, and a lot of the reasons why, you could point fingers and say this and the third, but a lot of our youth, a lot of our children don't know Christ. They don't know. But, and a lot of times people say, well, how can they learn about Christ or know Christ when they use their own fathers as an example? So it's like, well, if you're thinking about it from a worldly view. You say, okay, well, my earthly father abandoned me, so my spiritual father is going to do the same, so I don't need to know him. But that's exactly why we need to be able to be with our youth and our young kids, to let them know, like, look, it's not that same way. We have to teach and mold in these kids that, yeah, okay, situations have arisen. This could have happened, but your spiritual father is not going to ever abandon you. He's going to always be there for you. And that's why I want these young men and these men in general to know, like, we have to, it's up to us to make sure that the next generation knows and learns and, and can learn, and not just from what they see on TV or what they see in the streets. We have to, because that's what you see now too. Most of these kids are being raised by the television, or being raised by, their other peers, and, and that whole family, that whole parent role has been redefined, and it's like, well, they're not learning from their parents. So, that's a real big issue, and I think that's something that definitely needs to be pushed more too. Being able to learn and know that your biological father needs to be the one and needs to have that instilled, that your spiritual father will not abandon you.
And I want to make a correction, because I said father, but actually the title of the book is My Daddy Taught Me That. And I think that it's still prophetic, because once you embrace God as a father figure, principally speaking, as well as the statutes and on, the whole, if you will, indoctrination of the fatherhood issue, which is, to me, it's misunderstood on a lot of fronts. But once you embrace that his love is unconditional, for instance, once you embrace that his grace is without merit, that his mercy is new every morning, for instance, when you embrace these eternal truths and principles, he becomes papa or daddy to you. You know what I'm saying? And so when you look up and you hear instruction or an impression, if you will, regarding your child, you're able to say, as Keynon Lake has written in his book, my daddy taught me that. I think that the title alone expresses humility, honor, and respect. Because make no mistake about it, our single mothers are doing a fantastic job considering the odds. But if you throw in the fatherhood perspective, whether it be community men, whether it be men that are in church, men that are in civic associations, educational fields, and let that child begin to bond to the concept of a father, that child will learn another level of respect and honor. And when I look at your title, Keynon, I just want to congratulate you on the air that this title, My Daddy Taught Me That, is giving honor to your father. And that honor in turn now gives you a platform with young men, because who we honor, that gives us power, that gives us confidence to charge right into the arena where Red Bulls run and say, hey, you can do this. You can pull yourself out of this. And you can say it, and it has impact and influence right then and there. And it helps even when you're married. Later on, these men will interact with women back again.
Oh my goodness. That's something that you hear all the time too. That's a whole nother story. But
we're going to talk about that in the future, man. Keynon Lake, everybody, native of Asheville, North Carolina, loves basketball. His father played with the original Globetrotters, social worker. And tell them how they can get a hold of you should they want you to be a speaker, or if they have a particular question that they may want to inquire about regarding their children, their male children. Give them some contact information.
Okay, well, first of all, I can be reached and found on Facebook, Keynon Lake, Keynon Lake. That's how you spell my name. Also, I can be reached by telephone. That number is area code 828-582-2261. And I encourage all listeners to take a look at my website. The website is mydaddytaughtmethat.com. It'll show you all what I'm doing. It has a lot of pictures on there. It has a lot of information about my men's development group. And I can also be contacted. There's an email on there as well. So those are the ways to contact me.
And, man, we're going to work, for all of our listeners, we're going to work within the next 30 days or less to have a show format up where Mr. Lake can share via phone his thoughts continuously, whether it be once a week. We'll figure out the time frame and let everybody know where he can begin to share from his book, begin to take questions over the air, because we have to do whatever we have to do within the confines of just law, as Dr. King might put it, to encourage our young men. God made you a man, and you got to know how to be one. You got to know how to be one, and we don't want you discouraged and frustrated. Of course, we want to reduce recidivism, which is, the revolving door between men in prison and things of that nature. So, man, Keynon Lake, thank you so very much. The first of many interviews to come, man. We appreciate your time. We surely are celebratory that you decided to record this with us at the time of Martin Luther King's birthday, the prelude to Black History Month, as well as the prelude to the inauguration of the 44th President of the United States, man. Give us a final word as we get ready to close it out.
Well, again, I want to thank you for having me on. I greatly appreciate it, and I greatly appreciate the work that you're doing as well. Also, I want to give a shout-out to both President Obama and Dr. Martin Luther King. Happy birthday to him as well. I encourage all my listeners and all my people out there in this world to do the things that we talked about, and that's think. Young, old. We're living in a world today that's constantly changing. So the thing is, think about your actions. Like I tell all my young folks, like I tell the older peers that I have, the older kids that I have, your actions are more than just something that you can think of as far as it affects you. There's always somebody watching. There's always somebody who may look up to you. You may not ever know. So make sure that what you're doing and what you're out there portraying is something that can be
We interrupt this program to simply say thank you for your listenership here on SIBN Radio. We do not take what you're giving to us for granted. By all means, we invite you to be a part of our family in a deeper way. You can visit our websites, www.sibntelevision.com. You'll see a community page at the top there, and you can join free of charge with your email and share your thoughts, pictures, and so much more right there on the site. And for those of you that would like to listen more regularly to our block programming, you can visit www.sibnradio-by-selectusatv.com. We're now looking for interns for the SIBN networks, and there is no shortage of work that needs to be done. Simply email us your bio or resume to globalcoverage@selectusatv.info. New programming is always a consideration here at the networks, and we invite you to share your ideas, concepts, or vision. As we move forward with a global multimedia platform, we expect great things. We now want to return you to your regularly scheduled program. And again, from our hearts to yours, thank you. You're listening to SIBN Radio on the Select USA TV iBroadcasting Network. You're listening to SIBN